Surprisingly, even Google banned our app. No review, no communication. We just got an email that said, these are sensitive times, COVID is a natural disaster, and Google does not allow anybody to profit from a natural disaster, period. No other explanation. So now we lost our iOS app, our Android app. We had no app related to COVID. We were disappointed, really distressed, and we could see there was no tech response, no app to fight COVID. Then by mid-April, surprise, surprise, Google and Apple come out with a press conference where they say, oh, don't worry world, don't worry governments. Google and Apple are coming up with their own Google Apple exposure notification application to fight the pandemic. All this safety, misinformation, privacy, pretext was pretextual. It was a made-up reason so that they could control the COVID-19 app response. Right, so after this we were all frustrated, so we started, looking for information online. And we were seeing reports that other app developers were being rejected for the same kind of BS excuse, guideline. So we started talking to attorneys, antitrust attorneys, and we would tell them, look, this is unfair, this is what they did to us, and all these experts would listen to us, and they say like, yes, you have a claim here. You have both Apple and Google banned your apps and then came up with a competing product. That's a problem. That smells like anti-competitive, and they might have harmed you and harmed users and developers and so on. So we then said like, great, could you help us file a lawsuit? And the lawyers were saying like, are you crazy? You're gonna take on two tech giants worth $1 trillion? And we said like, why not? What they did was wrong is wrong. If they harmed us and they harmed users and innovation and competition, then if it's wrong, it's wrong. And if we have a claim, we would like to pursue. They said like, well, it's gonna cost you a lot of money. Do you have a lot of money? I said like, no. And they said like, well, you have a problem there. If you don't have the money, then how are you gonna file a lawsuit? So we then asked them like, so are you telling us that we have a valid claim that we could win, but the only problem is that we don't have enough money? He said, yes. If we had money, would you take our claim? I said, of course. I think you have a decent claim here, and if you can quantify your damages, and if you can prove that, the two giants collaborated against you guys, and they launched their own products, and they competed unfairly, yes, you might have a claim, but you need a lot of money. And we said, like, how much? I said, like, well, at least a couple of $100,000 just to get started. Then they gave us a suggestion. Where it's like, there are other entities like litigation funding companies that help small tech companies like you. They would fund the lawsuit in exchange for a share of the profit if you win. We said like, great, can you introduce us? So we got introduced to a couple of litigation funding companies, and they listened to our story, and they said like, great, do you have a law firm? So they no, we don't have a law firm. I said like, that's the problem. Like, yes, we understand. The law firms are telling us we need to get the money from you guys, and you guys are telling us we need to get a law firm on board before you give us the money. So it's a catch-22. No money, no law firm, no money. And to get started, we need at least a couple $100,000. We don't have that much, but we have a little bit to get started. So to bridge the gap, we decided we'll self-fund this. So we put some money together. We did our own online research. We called hundreds of antitrust law firms, lawyers, and we crowdsourced legal advice. So they told us what we need to do, what information we had to collect, what claims we can bring, and then we put the complaint together ourselves and found a couple of lawyers, and we pleaded with them saying like, we don't have a lot of money, this is what we have, it's a valid claim, enough to show that we have merit, and we have a statute of limitation coming up. Our 4-year statute of limitation is coming up. By now we've been working on this thing for 4 years, so we probably had enough information on how to put a complaint together. And we said, we have a little bit of money, we'll pay you, just file a complaint for us so that we survive and save the statute of limitation. We have to file something before the statute of limitation expires. And they said, okay, we'll take your money, we'll revise the complaint, but we're only going to do this just to file. From then on, you're going to have to raise the money to pay us. And we said, yes, just save statute of limitation, file a complaint. And on March 18th, 2024, by some miracle, we pulled it off, and we filed a decent antitrust and breach of contract claim against Apple and Google. Right before midnight, we submitted the app to the App Store. We submitted the lawsuit electronically to the DC federal court. And we were relieved. At least now, we preserved statute of limitation. We can go forward with our lawsuit, raise the funds that we need to hire the lawyers, the experts, and so on. 3 days later, to our surprise, we're notified that the DOJ, United States Government, Department of Justice, also filed an antitrust lawsuit against Apple. 3 days after we filed our antitrust lawsuit, the DOJ files an antitrust lawsuit against Apple. We were shocked, surprised. And then we read the DOJ's complaint. And we were like, oh my God, everything that we've been saying, that Apple is a monopoly, competes unfairly, bans applications, and restricts competition in the App Store. That's exactly what the DOJ is saying. That Apple is a monopoly, it has anti-competitive practices, and violates developers' rights. Now all of a sudden, all these lawyers, law firms, litigation funding companies, experts that we were talking to, all of a sudden said wow, your timing was perfect. You filed 3 days before the DOJ, and the DOJ complaint overlaps your complaint? I said, yes, that's good for you. That means Apple has to take on the DOJ and you, and the DOJ is watching. So this is going to be a fair fight for you. So then, right after the DOJ complaint, all of a sudden, phone calls were getting answered by these big law firms. Phone calls by these litigation funding companies were getting answered. We're pitching different law firms, different litigation funding companies, experts that were saying, not now. All of a sudden, we're seeing the potential for a very positive outcome. So everybody started responding favorably. And also, we created a GoFundMe campaign, and we started trying to raise money. And we kept telling our story to friends, family, and benefactors. And to our surprise, a lot of people were saying oh my God, go for it. Here's $100, here's $20, here's $50, here's $500. And we were shocked that everybody that we told our story, the majority of the people understood that this was a David versus Goliath fight. What we try to do in response to pandemic, using our application to track, map, trace, and contain COVID was a good idea. And everybody resented that the big giants would shut down small app developers like us, ban small app developers like us, and take on our idea and compete unfairly. So here we realized that in the court of public opinion, the public is on our side. If this was a David versus a Goliath fight, the public is on David's side. We've been told by a few law firms that they are interested in taking on our case, but we need to raise a little bit of money, $100,000 to $200,000, to cover some expenses for experts and other hard costs. So that's what we're pleading. We're reaching out to the public that if you hate big tech censorship, if you believe unfair competition by big tech is not fair, and you want to support us, all we ask is just download the PhantomALERT app, subscribe, and within the app you can also donate, or just simply go to PhantomALERT.com, and on our website we've created a GoFundMe campaign. Just donate. You can donate anonymously, and you can leave us a review, and if we raise enough money, we're going to use that money to revamp PhantomALERT app to fight the next pandemic, and also to cover PhantomALERT's legal fees. And I think this is a David versus a Goliath fight. That's going to be very interesting. And only in America can a small tech company take $2 trillion giants to court and have a chance to win. Only in America. And I hope you support us. All we wanted to do during the pandemic was leverage our crowdsourced app to save lives, slow down the pandemic, and get on with our lives. It was a noble cause. But Apple and Google, they would not let us compete. And they harmed competition, they harmed users, they harmed innovation, they censored you, they censored us, and that's wrong. So please support us.